Hi guys, in this lesson we're looking at open D tuning, which is where we retune our guitar to play a D chord, and it also means that we have to relearn open chord shapes that we would normally use in the key of D. However, some of those can be played with one finger, and we're also going to be covering how we can play some of the others with one finger also. So this is an intermediate level skill, but so many bits of it are really, really easy. That some of the hardest bit can be just making sure you've tuned your guitar correctly. So without further ado, let's get in for the close-up, and definitely check out my lesson for Barcelona by George Ezra if you dig this kind of style. Open D tuning. So this is where it can be very handy to have a slightly more advanced, or what we call a chromatic tuner, which actually it's looking like Kit from Knight Rider at the moment, but it actually shows you what note we're actually playing or what note it's hearing, rather than just working for standard tuning. So that's called a chromatic tuner. There are many variances of it, but for open D tuning we need the notes to be a D, then an A, and then a D again, an F sharp, A, and then finally D. And that will give us a D major chord over all 6 strings. And then essentially we need to relearn some chord shapes on the fretboard so that we can play any of the songs we want to do, or even just experiment with, like I like to do, just playing these chords and working around with them. So let me show you some chords that we can use very easily. I'll show you 2 bar chords, but they're literally just with the flat first finger. But other than that, these are very easy shapes to make. The hard thing comes from memorizing them. So the first one is easy. It's just the D chord like this, just the open strings. The 2 next easiest ones are at the 5th fret and then the 7th fret, because the 5th fret, and this is why I'm using my Yamaha guitar, because you can see the dots on the top. So 3rd fret, 5th, that's a G chord, which gets used an awful lot in open tuning. When we're doing this, even open G has a lot of bars like this. And then the 7th fret would be an A. So straight away, we've got what we would know as the 1, 4, and 5, which is how you can play many pop songs. Some of you are maybe looking at that and going, wow, why did I learn all these complicated shapes at the start when I was first learning guitar? Why didn't I just use an open tuning? Because you can play loads of songs with that. Well, it does get a little bit more complex than that, especially when you're learning any scales and melodies, because anything that you now know has totally changed. That's the thing. That's the scary thing about open tunings, but it's the wonderful thing as well for experimenting, for getting new sounds out of your same guitar. And a couple of things that I'm going to show you now are born out of, or in preparation of, the George Ezra song Barcelona, which I will be teaching and maybe even be on YouTube at the moment, my full tutorial for that. They're inspired by that, and I'm going to show you a couple of other options so we can get all the chords in the key of D. But first you need to know the major scale on the thickest string, which would be string 6, and this will be starting from D, but either way it's always the same frets. It's always open, 2, 4, so open, 2, 4, and then 5 and 6 that we've already done, you know, where we did the flat first finger. So that again, open, 2, 4, 5, 6, and then it's the next dot as well, which is 9th fret, then 11, and then finally 12. So if you do those in order, you could even, just to have the easiest way to get every chord in the key of D, and it sounds great. We do this a lot in the Barcelona lesson. You can just play the root and then a strum. And it sounds, because the root note has changed, it sounds like we're changing chord. songs like Iris, which I hope to teach soon, do this when you're in the tuning of that particular song. And we can also double that up on the thinnest string to be able to play melodies as well, and it's exactly the same frets because they're both tuned to an E. So we can play open, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and then 12. And once you know those, it doesn't matter which string you play it on, whatever the open string, the name of the open string is. For example, my string 5 is still an A. You only have to remember those fret numbers. Open, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 11, and 12. And then we also know it in this particular key on string 1 and string 6. So string 6, it's useful for playing chords where we're playing just the open strings but the root note changes. And then for the thinnest string melodies, this is how we're going to play. This is how we play melodies. Become a one-man band basically, and this is the awesome thing about open tunings. It allows you, or any alternate tuning, is essentially to give you this sort of flexibility for any particular song on guitar and on the fretboard. So what chord shapes do we have that are a little bit more interesting? In the George Ezra song Barcelona, we're using this as an E minor chord, where we've got the middle finger on what is now an E note at that second fret of string 5, and the first finger where it would be on a normal E chord, so it's like this. So fairly straightforward to remember. It's the same thing for the F sharp minor, so E minor, slide it up 2 frets for the F sharp minor. And we can use that same shape for the other minor chord, which would start at 9th fret, which would be a B minor in the key of D. And it's a B minor because we want to get used to this idea of diatonic chords in the key of whatever we're in, and this is in the key of D. So those chords would be using these shapes. That's our D, just the open strings, because we're tuned to open D. This is our E minor, or our second chord. Third chord is another minor, and it's F sharp. Then we have A, which we could play as a bar, but I like leaving that thinnest string open to perhaps play melodies. So all we really need is that thickest string like this, but also I think it's really cool to either play the thickest 4 strings at the 5th fret. This is similar to the stuff that I do when I'm in the key of E, standard tuning, where we keep the thinnest 2 strings like this. Same thing at 7th fret. So I'm holding just the thickest 4 strings down, but not the thinnest 2. They're ringing out. If you need an extra finger to play a melody or something like that, which we'll be doing later, just take one off and either mute it or keep it to the open string. That kind of thing. There's very little right or wrong with this, because we're away from standard, the standards that are or the conformities that are of standard tuning. We're in our own world here, and you can do whatever you want. It's really cool. And then finally, so that was the standard way of doing it. The thickest 4 strings here is a G. At the 7th fret is an A major. And then using the shapes we learnt before, middle finger perhaps at 9th fret, and then first finger here at 8th fret on the 3rd string. Other fingers aren't down. they're not down. And then of course, as we've done before, we can play the melodies. Or like we do in the George Ezra one. Use a finger picking pattern. All of that will be covered in my George Ezra Barcelona guitar tutorial, which, if it's not live already, will be live in the next day.